Elizabeth Arden Cream.
This One's Wife. Official podcast flops. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. As you know, This One's Wife was gotten rid of by Spotify, but because of the delusion and magical thinking of her narcissism, believed that she has something meaningful and important to tell the world. And thus, she found a home with Lemonada Media. Lemonada gained huge amounts of publicity, allowing people to know about their existence when many people did not, and also to know about their other offerings. They know that This One's Wife is rubbish. They have just used her for the purposes of profile raising. I very much doubt that she has received much money, if at all, from this particular producer. 3 episodes have been made available for people to listen to in her series Confessions of a Female Founder. And so far, unsurprisingly, they have floundered. Nothing to do with business. The origin story of the likes of Whitney Wolfe Herd just brushed over because This One's Wife isn't interested in that. She wants to tell people about how she met these people, how she's friends with these people, to talk about things that she believes that people are interested in, such as juggling work and family, which is something that many people are already familiar with. She has portrayed this show as something that will give you particular insight into how a business is run. We all know that This One's Wife has no information whatsoever to offer in that regard because she has never run a business before, and her latest offering, as ever, hasn't sold one item. It has simply given away the grift boxes. She doesn't know anything about business because she has neither run one before and she isn't running one now. Nevertheless, the delusion that is generated by her narcissism tells her that she is both female and a founder, and therefore she has something meaningful to tell us all, which is simply banging on about her family. Even though she has nothing to tell us about starting a business, you might think that she would have undertaken some preparatory work to extract that information from her guests, not least because she could perhaps go and use it herself with her fledgling business as ever, or at least to make the podcast interesting. But that would mean allowing her guests space to talk about their achievements, and no narcissist wants to hear that. The narcissist naturally wants it to be about them, not the guest, and therefore, with her usual laziness, whereby she has undertaken no preparatory work and lacking any interest in what her guests have to say, unless it's praising her or agreeing with her, we don't get any insights from individuals that have met with more success than This One's Wife has. Plenty of you have quite rightfully chosen not to bother listening to this podcast. I haven't either. It has no interest to me other than dissecting the nuggets that are reported on thereafter for the purposes of explaining more about This One's Wife's narcissism. But what about the public as a whole? Have they embraced it? Well, as you know, early reviews were not favourable, commenting upon the lack of business insight, the mirroring that has taken place, the self-absorbed conversations, and the general mutual masturbation of the self-appreciation that has gone on between This One's Wife and her guests. But according to Yahoo News, This One's Wife's latest podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, has vanished from rankings which are published by streaming giant Spotify. It is just 2 weeks and 3 episodes since it has been released, and it has already disappeared from the rankings. The show debuted at number 10 on Spotify's general top podcast chart in the United States, but has failed to generate any organic growth. The first episode, as you'll recall, featured This One's Wife in conversation with Whitney Wolfe Herd. Critics generally panned it. Her previous podcast, Archetypes, topped charts at launch week back in 2022, but quickly slipped down the rankings in the weeks that followed as listeners tired of the formula, which consisted of This One's Wife interviewing famous friends. She didn't learn from that because she never learns, because her narcissism never allows her to do so. Her mid-range narcissism is such that she believes that she is amazing and wonderful, that she is the person that is there to wow the world. And just 2 weeks after launching a new podcast, it's disappeared from the rankings. What does this tell you? Well, it demonstrates that the supporters of This One's Wife are not that many in number, as they have not been able to keep it in the top 100. It also demonstrates that very few people have actually engaged in the grudge listening or hate listening, as that would have driven up the figures. What it shows is many people are simply not interested, that those who may not have necessarily opinion about This One's Wife have not looked upon it and thought, that looks interesting, I'll give it a listen. Or perhaps they did in episode 1 and thought, do you know what? I'd be much better off rearranging the tins of baked beans in my cupboards. That would be far more rewarding than listening to this tosh. This naturally is bad news for the narcissist that is This One's Wife. When she's riding high in the charts, that provides her with the validation that she seeks. It's fuel for her, demonstrating that she's popular, that her show is worth watching or listening to. And in the circumstances, seeing that she's high in the charts, when it comes to the listing of whatever program she has created, not only provides her with fuel, but she's then able to triangulate people with this supposed success by pointing out that she's in the top 10, etc. This, having been taken away from her, wounds her. There's no fuel provided by virtue of her absence from these listings. She, of course, recognises that it's not popular because it's not appearing in the listings. But she will never, ever be able to accept that this is because she's useless, boring, and talks utter, unadulterated bunkum. Her narcissism, as has always done and will always do, defends her by automatically suggesting that the reason that it isn't as high as it should be is because Lemonada have not marketed it properly. Or it's because the mainstream media has been so hateful because they're racists that they have panned the earlier episodes, meaning that people are not giving it the chance it deserves. She is entirely convinced that every word that she has spoken has been a nugget of gold. She entirely believes that the shows are fascinating, that they are worth listening to. Although, of course, the statistical evidence does not support that, the delusion of her narcissism casts it to one side. And thus, it's official that her podcast has flopped. This wounds her, but her narcissism then rides to her defence by explaining, there. It's not your fault. It's somebody else's fault or something else's fault. And this is why she persists. This is why she is the influshable turd. Because she doesn't look upon it and go, oh, fucking hell, I've buggered something else up. Do you know what? I think I'll just stay quiet now. She doesn't. She really believes that she is this colossus that strides the world, brilliant at whatever she turns her hand to. And she only believes that any failure is as a consequence of the hate-filled behaviour of those who've been polluted by the racist British media and the awful social media commentators out there. As ever, it's never her fault, but it's official. Her podcast has flopped. Another to add to the long list of failures associated with the things that This One's Wife has sought to do. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.